Here we go for another episode of First Impression BJJ with Riccardo Ammendolia. Is that right?
That's it. That's it.
There we go. So I want to thank you first for the opportunity to give me, to talk to you, and I want you to introduce yourself a bit for.
Sure. My name is Riccardo Ammendolia. Some people call me Baleia. It's kind of like my nickname, that I got over the years. I'm a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt under the Mendes Brothers, Rafael and Guilherme Mendes. I've been training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu since around, I would say like 98. I did a little bit of just like fooling around with grappling in 97. I started with karate originally because my father was a black belt in karate. He used to teach at McMaster University where I live in the city of Hamilton. So that always kind of like, I always wanted to do martial arts as a kid. But then I started to do karate and then kung fu, and then I saw the UFC, and I was like, okay, like this is the real deal. And then I got kind of hooked on jiu-jitsu. So I started training, here in the city at Joslin's Martial Arts in Hamilton under Jeff Joslin, really, really tough, really good professor.
Yes.
And, traveled with Jeff to the States many times, to Chicago, trained with Carlson Gracie Jr. Then we hooked up with the Alliance team in 99. Wow. We went to go train with Romero Jacare, Cavalcanti in Atlanta. And then I would travel by myself to Atlanta after that, every year. And, that's where I met like a lot of the top guys from Alliance back then, like Leo Vieira, Rodrigo Comprido, Fernando Terere, Zemarius. Yes. And then I met Zemario Shviha. And then a year later, I brought Shviha to come and teach at Joslin's it was supposed to be 2 weeks. It ended up being almost a year. And He stayed. And at that time, like there wasn't really no black belts from Brazil, in Ontario, in Canada.
Yeah.
Oh no, in Ontario, and especially in Hamilton. I think Wagner was here, and some other guy like Marcus Suarez was already in Vancouver.
And was that what
that
year
was 2002. 2002 again. So anyway, so I stayed. Then he left, and then I stayed training at Joslin's until about 2008. And then in 2008, my one of my best friends, PJ O'Sullivan, opened up Pura Jiu-Jitsu, and I started training there. And we, became affiliated with the Mendes Brothers in 2010. I got my black belt in 2012 from them, and that's kind of where I've been ever since. But unfortunately, just due to everything with the pandemic and everything, Pura had to close its doors. The last few months. So right now I'm in Hamilton, not much training going on. Everyone's kind of like still figuring it out, but that's kind of my quick little story there of my jiu-jitsu journey.
Not so quick, but man, it's a good story. Over the years, I couldn't believe, like, I didn't know you got your black belt from the Mendes. That's amazing. That's man, one of the best. The two of them, they are great BJJ practitioner, right? So I love to see them, all the videos and stuff. And man, like I knew that you guys were affiliated, but I didn't know how close and how things would to get until you be affiliated until like with them. So when did you get affiliated with them? 2000.
So what happened was in 2008. I helped Ed Suarez, who was the manager of Anderson Silva. So I used to own a fight store, and I became friends with Ed because I used to sell his clothing called Sinister brand in my store. Okay. And we became friends over the years, and then I was always trying to bring Anderson Silva to the store to do like a meet and greet, which I did, and it was hugely successful. So what happened was when Anderson was coming, we piggybacked with this MMA event at the time that was like on the reservation, and they wanted to have him to do an appearance at the MMA event. But the caveat was that they were going to bring one of Blackhouse's fighters, who was Andre Galvão. So Ed made a deal with them. I'll bring Andre Galvão to fight, and then Anderson will come to be in his corner and be like, to be there. Then he'll do some appearances. So I met Andre about a year or two before at ADCC. Just like I was working with ADCC, and I kind of just hi bye, and
Yeah.
But when he was about to come here for the MMA show, Ed asked me, he's like, "Hey, can you take care of Andre? Can you hook him up with a place to stay and get him a place to teach?" I was like, "Yeah, Andre Galvão, man,
Not,
of
right?
course." So what happened was we brought Andre here, and he stayed with us, and we became friends. We really, him, my wife, we spent a lot of time talking about everything, and we really hit it off. And then it was cool, like when he fought here, and not a lot of people know this, when he fought on the reservation, like the walkouts for Andre's fight, it was like Andre and then Anderson and then me and then Soares, like to go. So it was like the first time, like I ever kind of did like an MMA walkout, but I was like next to Anderson, so it was so cool,
It's like a lot of stars already, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was fun. So anyway, so he won the fight with, I think he won with an armbar against a tough guy, Mikey Gomez. And then he stayed. He stayed a week. Actually, he went to Toronto BJJ for a week and taught there. And I hooked him up with Josh to figure that out. And then before he left, I went and got him, and we talked again more. And he was like, "Oh man, I want to come back." So I brought him back a year later, and I brought him a year like. When he came that first time, he didn't come and teach or anything with us. He was just like a guest. Then the next year he came and he started teaching at Pura. I think it was like a few classes. Then I brought him to Salvosa as well. And then we started talking, and he was like, "Oh man, like you guys should bring Rafael and Guilherme, man, they're so good. And, they want to branch out." And we were like, "Sure." At that time, that was like, when they just broke onto the black belt scene. So like we knew about them, but like we didn't really know them, but we knew how good they were. And like before that I was like training with like guys like Leo and Cobrinha, and then I would see Rafa beat them, and I was like, "Oh man,
wow, yeah,
I don't know, man, he's good." I felt kind of weird, but so then eventually we brought them in 2010. I met them in Abu Dhabi at World Pro, and we, introduced myself, and we kind of hooked up, and then we brought them in 2010, and then they stayed like, I think like a week for sure, maybe two. And they taught like every class twice a day. They taught classes, and it was like the craziest training we ever did, but also like, it just totally showed us like this whole new, style of jiu-jitsu. Like, yeah. Cause like, be honest, like before that, like it was like De La Riva was always like one technique for De La Riva, and then like one technique to pass. And like, I was like, who the hell does De La Riva? Like at that time, that wasn't really a big thing.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So like we learned, but we had no idea why, and then they came and they were like, "Okay, here is our De La Riva system, A, B, C, D to Z. Yeah. Here are the counters, and here are the counters to the counters." And we were just like, "Oh my God." So they showed us like so much more than just like the modern jiu-jitsu as well, that they kind of became to know. And it really, what kind of just got my attention was just their knowledge, their depth, and it wasn't just the fancy stuff, the Berimbolo, it was their mentality, their training, the emphasis on drilling. And, so we took that, and we, as an academy, we started to implement that, and we started to see some really good results in the local scene. And that's kind of how we kicked things off,
So you were already Pura BJJ at that time?
Yeah, so PJ Open, Pura BJJ, we did it all there. When PJ got his black belt, it was through Jean-Jacques Machado. Oh, okay. And, the academy was like not really affiliated, but it was like kind of under Jean-Jacques. But like Jean-Jacques is like, it's different, like he's not really into like the sport of jiu-jitsu anymore. He's kind of like, which is cool, like people do jiu-jitsu for like more different reasons, right? Yeah, so we were, PJ was under Jean-Jacques, but we brought the Mendes Brothers, and they were like, "You know what? Like, we really like it here. We want to have you guys as our first affiliate." So we were like, "Okay, cool." So we tried it out, and then it worked out well. And then what we would do is like, they would come like once or twice a year, and like if it wasn't both of them, it would be either Rafa or Guy, and then they would come every like few months, and then they would give us a curriculum, and then they would like upgrade it. So like one year they would come and show like reverse De La Riva, like hand on the collar, hand on the knee. Then the next year they would come, they're like, okay, scratch that. Now it's all about, 20 passes from here. We're like, shit. So every year they would come and just like refresh our curriculum, which was amazing. And then when they couldn't come because they started, they opened the academy, they had more seminars, they would send like some of their top brown belts.
Right. And I saw that.
So we had like amazing kids come up, Alessandro Roman, Mateus Rodriguez, Jonathan Alves, Tina Dalpra came, all the top guys. And
that right now they're doing really good too, right? I assume most of them reached the black belt, right?
Yeah. A lot of those guys, pretty much all the guys that came got their black belt and have either opened up academies or like been winning all the tournaments. So that's kind of how we started. And then in 2012 we made a team trip to go to the AOJ, like a bunch of the guys from the academy here. And then I was a brown belt at the time, and then that's when they awarded me my black belt.
Wow.
So it was cool. Yeah, I was actually their first black belt ever that they awarded.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's pretty good to know too. I didn't know that. That's fun. I'm sure that would be like such a type of pleasure for yourself too, because
it's cool, but it comes with a target, right? Because like
yes,
because like so like the funny part about it is like a year or two later I was traveling the United States doing academy visits for FIVE Grappling. I was working some marketing promotion for the company at the time, and I would go to the academy. So like, let's say I would go to like wherever, all over the United States. I went like Indiana, Illinois, California, you name it, Florida, everywhere. And then I would go visit the academy, and then I'd be like, man, I got to train too. So they'd be like, oh, cool, you're a black belt, huh? They're like, yeah. They're who you under? I'm like, like Mendes Brothers are like, let's roll. You know what I mean? And then they were like, oh yeah. So like, it was funny because like I was traveling and I didn't have regular training, but the training I was getting was like I had to be sharp, So
exactly, all the time, yes, I'm sure. So especially when you say that, right? Especially when you yes, I was promoted by Guy Mendes and Rafa Mendes. Like people, what?
Yeah. I think it's like not real. And then I'm like, yeah, I mean, but like just to be clear, like I got my blue, purple, brown under Romero Jacare. But when I left the academy that I was at, obviously it was weird because it was another Alliance Academy in the same city. So that's, I ended up getting through the Mendes. But originally I got my blue, purple, brown through Romero Jacare, who's like one of the greatest instructors of all time, amazing person that helped me out with like so much more, in jiu-jitsu that I can ever be thankful for. So
I understand that because when you have a type of relation with somebody that gave you all the way up to brown belt, and if you live in a good terms and stuff, it's like, always great to mention. I agree with that.
It's tough to do, and I made it very clear, like I wasn't leaving, under his tutelage. I wasn't dissatisfied with anything with him. It was more about the environment that I was in at the time, which was starting to be more focused about MMA than jiu-jitsu. And I was just not into that. I was just wanted to just do jiu-jitsu. So the new environment that was available for me, I was like all in, and we've been cool. Like even when I got my black belt, Jacare like sent me like a big congratulations. And even like, when I go to the Mundials or the Worlds and Pan Ams and I see him, we always, sit down and
that's good. It's
cool.
I understand. And I've seen many friends throughout the journey. You see that happening. You see some weird stuff happening. You're like, whoa, how can you, But
I think like there's ways to do that, and I think like, you could like the thing with our culture is like, there's a lot of rules that are unwritten, and some people are going to say like those rules are stupid and they shouldn't happen. And some people are going to say they should. I'm pretty old school. So I'm like, I think like respect is like really important. And
I agree with you,
and like, I think like it's better to do things the right way and be upfront about things. And that's what I really tried to do in that situation. But I can also understand where some people, they're a little intimidated to have those conversations, so they leave and then they get defensive, and then that's when problems happen, and then all of a sudden there's beef, and then this and that. So it's
Out of
nothing new.
nowhere becomes a beef that shouldn't hapen at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally understand. I've seen that happen many times.
Yeah.
But so going back when you started, like you said that you have a background in karate. Your dad was a karate, right?
Yeah, my father taught karate in the university here, and I did a little bit of karate, and I also tried some kung fu because I saw like Bruce Lee movies, and I thought that was real.
So then when you saw UFC, that was when something like woke up in you and said, I want to do jiu-jitsu. How was it? How did you meet jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so like I watched the UFC 3 pay-per-view because my brother told me about the UFC. He's like, man, like there's this event and it's like it's real fighting, and I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, man, they have like a karate guy, and this guy gets his head knocked off, and there's this guy from Spain, and he's called like the Garcia brothers, and he goes out there and no one knows what he's doing. He's just like tangling everyone up like a boa constrictor, and he makes them tap, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, you know what I mean? So then I kind of knew something about it, but I didn't see UFC 1 and I didn't see UFC 2. And what happened was the VHS didn't come out in time for UFC 3 pay-per-view. So then I went to my buddies in high school. We watched UFC 3 pay-per-view, and that was like, holy shit, this is the moment. Because I've always like looked at martial arts my entire life up until that point, and I always wanted to know like who would win, a boxer or karate. So I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the real deal, And then I was like, I start seeing the guys. I'm like, oh man, Ken Shamrock, man, look at the muscles. He's gonna kill everyone. But the Canadian guy, man, look at the mullet. He's got the white, tank top. And oh no, the Muay Thai guy. No, the Muay Thai guy's gonna the sumo. Oh shit. And then I'm like, look at who is this Gracie guy? And then I saw that he fought Chemo. To be honest, like I wasn't really impressed. Even he won. Because he kind of won, but like it was really weird, and I didn't understand what was going on. And then like I saw Ken Shamrock, and I'm like, man, I don't understand what's going on, but something's going on here. Exactly. Like I'm like, you don't get in really good shape and beat people up and win if you don't know what you're doing. So maybe I don't understand it, but he's doing something. So I was like, what is this? So at the time, like, it wasn't even like a conversation about like jiu-jitsu or Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It was just like grappling. It was like, where can I learn grappling at that time? So that was like 95, 94.
95, wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So at that time, people were like, what is grappling, And, what would you do? Like, there was no jiu-jitsu guys here. So you'd have to get seminars. You'd have to go look at magazines. You would have to get judo books, anything that looked like what you saw. Yeah. Like if you saw Royce Gracie do an armbar, there was no material. So you would go look at a judo book and be like, oh, that's the move. You know what I mean? Like Juji Gatame, you know what I mean? Wow. Like, oh, okay. So like you literally had to, like a lot of us in the community had to start like that, and then, guys started to come and teach seminars. And then, I started like, I actually, another funny story real quick before I get into that. What happened was I had some friends and we were like, kids that were just goofing around, like thought we were a tough guy. Yeah. One of them was a bouncer, and I thought I was like all into kung fu, right? Yeah. And like we were joking around, like I was like, giving him punches and kicks, and he's like, let's go, like for real. I'm like, all right, let's go. So then I was against like it was like not in an alley, but it was like a restaurant, and we're like, okay, go. So all he did was like rushed me and pushed me up against the wall, and I was like, okay, what are you going to do now? And he's like, well, what are you going to do now? You can't do anything. And I was like, I'm like, okay, let's do it again. So I did like 3 times, and I could not stop his entry, his clinch, his closing the distance.
Putting you against the wall. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, shit, like, wait a minute. Like, it didn't matter. Like if I was faster, if I was more flexible, because I had good kicks at the time. I'm like, that didn't mean anything, because all he had to do was just go forward and push me against. So then I was like a little light went off in my head, and then I saw the UFC, and then I saw that there was something there, and then I was like, okay, I got to get into this. Whatever this is, I need to learn. And that's kind of how it started. So I started to do karate at Jolson's in the karate program, but then they started to do a grappling class like once or twice a week.
Yeah.
So it was just that. Like what Jeff would do was he would get a magazine or he'd buy like the Gracie instructionals or whatever.
Wow.
And then we would like watch and then go practice, you know, and then, you know, for like maybe 2 years, we only had like 35 moves to practice. Like, you know what I mean? So it was good. I got really good at the basics, but yeah, it was a lot of time doing
very different. Like from, for example, nowadays you have the information everywhere. We have videos, we have seminar, have things, and people become good like that, right? Whenever they put the time. I'm sure that back in the day, those times, like when you have to see the paper and it's like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? You just see an image. Let's say you just see the guy with the arm here, or maybe the three images. Oh, you do like this, and then one picture. You do like that, another picture, and then exactly. The guy with the arm here extending the arm, and like, how the hell that happened, right?
Exactly, because there was no YouTube at the time.
Oh
there was magazines, books, and the magazines.
Which magazine was that?
So in a long time ago, Black Belt Magazine was like it talked about all martial arts. So Black Belt Magazine started, and they would do stuff about the UFC, and once in a while they would have like a jiu-jitsu guy like Hoyce or, you know, Henzo, and then the magazines started to sell. They would do like 3-page ads of like Panther Productions, and they would sell the VHS tapes of the instructionals.
Okay.
So then we would see, and then every year be a new guy. Oh, and then the magazine would promote the seminars. Oh, Seminar Toronto, Hoist Gracie. And I'll be like, oh shit. You know what I mean? So that is how the information was back then. We didn't have email, text, Twitter, Instagram. It was, you had to go to the variety store, buy the magazine, look for and pray that the seminar would come to Canada so that you could go. You know what I mean?
I get it. Yeah. So then, as you mentioned, you have like a background already, and then you got interested with that. So then, you had like a type of first class. How was it?
Well, what happened was my friend was going there before me, so we were always fooling around, like you know, like in his basement, like practicing, like just whatever. And then he showed me a couple of the moves, and I was like, okay. So then I had like a first class. Man, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember the first class, but I think it was like just close guard, you know, sit up, sweep, Kimura. That was it. You know what I mean? Like
you got in class, and then you say, okay, no problem. Come in, put your gear, and then let's practice whatever.
No drilling, no positional sparring. No, it was like half hour tech, like, you know, still kind of exists, like half hour technique, half hour or half hour warm up, half hour technique, half hour sparring. But back then, we would also practice a lot of the self-defense, because when the Gracie family came to North America, that was like their like appetizer for jiu-jitsu. They didn't really show you a lot of the cool stuff. They showed you first like self-defense, the basics of jiu-jitsu, and then you had to go to like them specifically and ask them like, but can you show me, like, you know what I mean, the other stuff? And then they would like, oh, okay, like they would open up if they felt that you were kind of past that level to learn, you know. But that's how a lot of us learn, you know.
When they came to focusing on self-defense, right?
Yes,
that was the whole idea. And this year, I believe the Grace family, the Grace University, or the Grace, you know, Jiu-Jitsu, they are always more focused on self-defense. Until nowadays, I believe they promote that a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, on the internet.
Yeah.
So you went there, and then you started. And how was it? Like, how after you started, after you get the moves, and you know, realize that things are working, or things that make connection? Because before you're like, oh man, I see that something's behind that. But then when you start doing it and you start to understand, how was the, you know, the mind, how things change?
I think it just like, you know, kind of like the proof was in the pudding, like being able to roll with people and get like your first submission. You're like, oh my God, like the first submission is like you're in a, you know, not to say it, and I'm against this, but saying it's almost like a first fix of a drug, you know, like you get addicted after that, you know, and that's how it was, you know, submitting, being able to make somebody submit the first time, you're just like, wow, I have the power. I have this magic power. Yeah. So then it was like, you know, the addiction became learning more and more and more.
Yes.
But at the time, like back then, like this is the funny part about jiu-jitsu back then is like if I was in Hamilton and I drove to Toronto and like let's say I trained with Omar Salvosa at the time, he probably only knew the exact same jiu-jitsu moves that I knew because the material was only, it was like little by little came to the country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like very baby steps. So everyone knew the same thing. And like everyone had the same VHS and everyone had the same information. But then like different people started to come from Brazil to North America. Different Gracie members started to come. And then all of a sudden you started to learn the new jiu-jitsu, like the sport jiu-jitsu. Like my first tournament that I ever saw was Mundial's 1996. But I didn't buy it because I thought it was jiu-jitsu as the sport. I thought it was Vale Tudo, but that they called it jiu-jitsu. So I was like, oh man, I'm going to get like bare knuckle, you know, because
crazy stuff.
Yeah. Bare knuckle champ, because the promotion, like the magazine had like two dudes in a Speedo, like punching each other. And it was like, get the real jiu-jitsu from Brazil. So I was like, oh man.
Vale Tudo, they promoted.
Yeah. Because back then, like, honestly, like we would watch UFC to learn moves as well. If we saw somebody doing something in the UFC, we're like, oh shit. Like now I could do, like, that's how you would learn, is by watching, because there was no information. So the first tapes that I saw, I was like, what is this? Like, I didn't understand that. But then I was like, I started to see guys on the tape. I was like, oh, this guy's Carlson. Oh, Gracie. Okay. I started to make the connection. I'm like, oh, this guy's Mario Sperry. I'm like, okay. So then, oh, he fought in Extreme Fighting. Okay, cool. Oh, Holker Gracie. That's Hoyce's brother. So then I kind of like started to get into the sport. And then that was another addiction. It was like, oh man, like this is the coolest thing ever, and I got really obsessed with the sport as somebody, just wanting to learn and compete, and then eventually run tournaments and promote the sport,
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, like nowadays with this all information all over, like right now, like a BJJ, if you want to train BJJ and you go on the internet, oh, what is BJJ?
Yeah.
What looks like BJJ? I believe a lot of people don't really understand, because they would see two guys like a sport. Let's say they go and see a match between Cobria and Rafa Mendes. They're gonna look and they're gonna feel like, oh my god, what is this? What are they doing? Like Meow Brothers. They don't. I'm sure that people never understand what is happening.
People still don't.
They still don't. They still don't. Exactly. So, and then back in the day, you didn't have none of those, and then you went there. You really want to find out what was that, and then you went to the gym. You start to get it, then you start to become addicted, right? Because with the movements and stuff, and then found out about like the Grace family. You start to put connections together.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to get your blue belt?
So I started like training like jiu-jitsu, like real jiu-jitsu, I would say like 97, 98. And then I got my blue belt in Atlanta from Jacare in 99. Summer of 99.
Basically 1 year. Most of people will take 1 year. Okay.
Yeah.
So I believe you would be already like rolling, submitting guys, right? Like applying, like knowing a lot of stuff from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And how did that change? Like when you did anything I'm sure you noticed the change, right? Before you're like, oh, I don't know anything. Now I know something, and I'm sure it changed something like on your path, like on your lifestyle.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Like mentally too, because I'm sure we change a lot mentally, but back in the day it was different. I don't like right now I can speak about it right now, but before I'm sure it was like very different, because we see all the time like our coaches talking, oh, this is gonna help you with your mental, this is gonna help with the physical and this and that. But back in the day, how was it?
I never really thought about that, to be honest with you, because the guys that I was learning from here, we were all learning together. So I didn't really have like a mentor or a professor for a while. A lot of it was mutually taught. When I first started to learn jiu-jitsu techniques, it was because it's like Eddie Bravo always says, like the UFC got me into jiu-jitsu. The jiu-jitsu didn't get me into UFC. So when I was first learning techniques, originally, like, we would learn the jiu-jitsu, but then we would like, okay, take our gi off and then get like the pads and go like 1, 2, takedown, punch, punch, kimura, Americana. So we would try to like prepare for like a Vale Tudo or MMA because that's all we saw. But then we saw the sport, and then I got introduced to the culture of the sport, and then my head went from, okay, like, do I really want to be a fighter, like a mixed martial arts guy or a Vale Tudo fighter, or do I want to get into this sport thing where I could do it more? I don't get paid, but I could compete more.
Exactly.
And it's fun. And there's a whole lot. And then I started that. And then I was like, oh, wow. Then there's a whole culture because you start the sport, then you meet people, I met, like, you go to tournaments. And at that time, it wasn't really it was like competitive, but it was a little different because if you were doing jiu-jitsu, it's like you were just so honored that there's other people doing it, and you could meet in the same place in a building where there's 200 other people that enjoy the same thing as you, that you feel is like this little secret that no one knows about, because at the time no one knew anything. So you get there and like I remember like we would compete against like guys from the Samurai Club at the time or Grappling Arts at the time. But then we would make friends with them and they would invite us to train. So then we would go there as a group and start training with those guys. So we would compete, but then go train with them because we were so desperate to exchange knowledge, and maybe we would go there and then they were like, oh man, like, so it's like, the culture kind of got me to change my thinking. And then, things started to graduate and then I kind of understood fully about the culture. And then, my thought about training became more about, less about just the specific technique and then more about like the philosophical and these other things and these, but that didn't happen until, I believe until I got my black belt, you know what I mean? Like really, I didn't know anything until I got my black belt and I still don't, but I feel like it's funny. Cause like, I feel like the how do I say it? Like I was in the best shape. I was in the best spirit. I was in the best training when I was a purple belt. But I really understand now that I didn't know shit. You know what I mean? But I felt like the best. I felt like the best ever I was physically, but psychologically I knew nothing. You know what I mean? And now the real learning, like they say, happens when you get the black belt, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I see a lot of people saying that. I still don't know that. Like you said, you don't know. I don't know that too until I have to reach my black belt yet. But you don't think like, okay, at a purple belt, like you said, I was in the best shape, and doing everything in the best, training a lot. In a way, maybe now you can figure out that like jiu-jitsu made you do this transition until that, into being the best shape and be competing and be with the best guys to exchange knowledge. In a way, maybe the mental wasn't there like so much. Maybe like you said, now you don't know like so much, but I'm sure that you used to pass to your students like a lot of things that you've been learning through the times, right?
Absolutely. So, a lot of lessons for sure.
Oh yeah, like I understand that we still have to learn a lot, and it's a process that never stops. Like the best of the best in the world is still learning. They're still providing a lot. They provide a lot of content and a lot of philosophy and stuff. But I'm sure they still like every time learning with somebody.
Absolutely, you can't stop. That's I think that's the other thing that like really made me appreciate jiu-jitsu more, because it's like I look at it this way, like with karate, there's how many techniques of karate? Really, like maybe 100. Okay, and then it becomes a question of the combinations of the techniques. Okay, cool, but the technique itself doesn't change. It always stays the same.
Yeah.
Whereas with jiu-jitsu, it's like every year
something new.
Something comes new, and you're just like, you can never stop. So knowing that and appreciating that, I think that kind of drew me even more into, kind of like my addiction to jiu-jitsu. And it's still to this day, it's like, now it's like, not just as an instructor, but as an analyst and commentator, I have to constantly stay on top of the trends and looking at what people are doing. So when I'm commentating their match, I know what they're doing. But it's cool because what I try to do is watch, learn, study, and then try it in my classes when I teach, you know, oh guys, check this out. Yeah. So then when I go back, I have like a further knowledge of that particular athlete, you know, so I'm really blessed to be able to do that. It's really cool.
Great. Yeah. I see all the times. To be honest, the first time I saw you was, I think it was FIVE Grappling. I can't even remember, was in some tournament. And then I saw some people talking, and then a year later or something, I start to see videos, like some videos. And then I saw you on ADCC, and then I saw you here. And then I was like, where's this guy from? And then I found out that he was from Hamilton. I was like, what? Like, so close here, you know? I was like, no, that's impossible. I thought you were like maybe from US or some. I was like, I don't know. Let me find out. And then I start to see you more often, you know, because I start to be more with the community, more and more. I was like, oh my God, this guy's like so close. And I never knew you were like Pura. You were a Pura at Hamilton. I was like, my God, this guy's so close. And it's like nothing that not blow my mind, but in a way, you always been with the best. You always been talking to the best guys and interviewing the best guys, walking around with the best guys, because I see that, you know. And this is good because, like you said, you keep constantly learning and learning from the best, and that's great.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, I tried to. I just kind of thought to myself, like, you know, I decided to myself a long time ago, like, I was like, look, like, there's the scene that we have here in Canada, which is great, and I need to contribute to that. And you know, you may not know, but I contributed a lot to the scene here in Canada. I can get into that later. But then I was always like, okay, but there's a whole other scene out there. There's a whole other world out there of jiu-jitsu and grappling and people that love this and people that are enthusiasts. So how do I connect with that? So I was like, I need to figure out ways how to connect with that, to be a part of that, but then also to bring some of that back here. And that was always my goal. And sometimes that led to politics. Sometimes that led to criticism, me trying to, you know, push for the bigger picture always. But that's just how it goes. You know, whenever you want to do something new, you're going to take criticism, and I'm fine with that, you know. But I believe in the bigger picture. I believe, like, you know, I see jiu-jitsu, you know, as this huge world, and I want to be at the forefront of the technical, the media, the promotions, all these different things. So I have a really good knowledge of all of it, as opposed to just the local knowledge and thinking kind of, you know, conservatively. I want to kind of open myself up to that. So what I decided was, I'm going to try to help as much as I can to the bigger picture, you know. Going, man, like, you know, 2007 for ADCC, I drove all the way to New Jersey, you know, just to go help. You know, my first thing with ADCC was 2007. I drove to New Jersey to lay the mats at ADCC. Then when I laid the mats, what happened was, the next day they were like, hey, can you help us with the just the running of the tournament? I'm like, sure, because they started to see, like, I knew the fighters because I was bringing them to Canada. Like, I knew Marcelo Garcia. I knew a lot of them. So they were like, who is this guy? Like, he knows a bunch, so let's use him. So then they put me to work. Like, I was only supposed to work on the setup and the takedown. Yeah. But then during the ADCC, they're like, man, if you want, you can help us, and you could sit right on the floor of it and watch all the matches. But from time to time, we're going to ask you to work. I was like, okay, cool. So that was like, I was sitting there, and they're like, okay, I need you to do me a favor. Go get a table from upstairs. You're going to bring it to Bruce Buffer. I'm like, oh, sweet. So I went and got the table. Okay, now you got to sit next to Bruce Buffer and tell him who won on each mat. So so if you just, I have a picture on my Instagram. It's like I'm with a walkie-talkie like this. I'm sitting next to Bruce Buffer. So I would be Leo Vieira won my armbar, mat number 3, and then he would go with the microphone, Leo Vieira. You know. So then, you know, from there, then I spoke like a little bit of Portuguese because my wife. And then they were like, oh, like, you speak Portuguese. Can you translate to the Brazilians? I was like, I'll try. So you know what I mean? Like, I went and did it. You know what I mean? So the point is like, you got to put yourself in some of these positions. And my advice is, like, you got to try to put yourself in these positions. You may not be the most qualified, but you got to try. And
exactly,
to be part of the bigger picture, you got to just put yourself out there, you know. And my goal was always to like work with these big organizations to kind of have them run events here. So, you know, in 2009, I helped Fabio Holanda with the World Pro Trials. In 2010, I did an ADCC qualifier in Canada. I ran my own invitational 2004, 2005, 2006. Which is GSP fought in it, Fabio Holanda fought in it, a lot of top guys. And I used that money to go to Brazil in the summertime and spend 3 months in Brazil. So it was always like a means to an end, you know. It was always like trying to like connect with the bigger picture of the sport, but also to like use it to understand like the real picture of what's going on, and also be part of the culture in a bigger perspective, you know?
Oh, yes, I understand, man. And I like the idea. And it doesn't matter what you're gonna do, people are always gonna say some shit, like you said, right? You're trying to be part of a bigger picture. And this way I can see that you could bring a lot of stuff here, and like you did, right? And to be honest, that's the whole goal. Like we try to make the Canadian scene grow and grow more, because this is how we're gonna go there in the awards or any type of big tournaments and represent and bring more attention to the community here, right? And maybe make some athletes or more people, to be honest, make a little bit of more money or something through jiu-jitsu. And that's I believe that's a lot of goals for everybody, because it's not only about the passion and stuff if you cannot survive with that. You know, if you can do that and survive, things become a lot great, like a lot better, right?
Absolutely. Like my goal right now is continue doing my work that I do, building content for Flow, doing other stuff, you know, teaching here locally, but also before the pandemic, I was having conversations with some of the local promoters about how to develop their tournaments here to get more media attention the right way, because some of them have maybe the wrong impression on how to do that. Not because, you know, they're negligent or anything like that. It's just maybe because they just don't know. So I was laying it out for them, like, okay, guys, this is what I think we need to do. Like step A, step B, step C. And then we could start to have like, you know, Flow Grappling come here to cover events. But we need these steps, because I know what needs to be done, because I'm on the other side of the picture there. So my advice is it shouldn't fall on deaf ears. You should listen to me. You know, I always give this example. I remember, I can't remember who was telling me, they're like, oh, why didn't Flow Grappling come here to the Ontario Open, for example, and to cover the event? I'm like, no disrespect. It's a huge event, amazing competitors, biggest event in Canada, but there's a lot of big events all over the world. Why would they come here? And the example that was given to me was, oh, but Buchecha and Leandro Lo were here. I'm like, okay, cool. Teaching a seminar. Did they compete?
Not competing, yes.
They didn't compete. Okay, now, if you had Buchecha and Lo competing, let's say they destroyed everybody, which naturally they would do. Beautiful. Highlight. Where did it happen? Ontario Open. Now, all of a sudden, you're on the radar. Now, if they came and they lost, where did it happen?
That would
oh shit, this tough tournament in Canada. You know what I mean? So that's my point. Like, and that's something that I've always pounded on the promoters here. You got to bring the big names here. You have to bring them, invest in that, and then the attention, because it's like the, you know, the kid that's going to look at the butterfly. You know what I mean? Like the media is going to look where the butterflies are. The butterfly is the athletes, not the amount, but the stars, and that's going to attract the outside to come and look here. So I was working on some stuff with some of the local guys here, and hopefully when COVID is over, we could go back to having those conversations. And there's a lot of cool stuff, because you know, I decided at one point, like I was doing a lot of stuff local, you know, sponsoring tournaments, I was running events, and then I kind of got hooked up with like a bigger tournament scene, and then I was like, okay, I kind of neglected the scene. But as a coach, I didn't really have a reason to go to a lot of tournaments anymore, because I have 3 kids now. It's a lot tougher for me, you know what I mean?
I get it.
Yeah, so now I'm like, okay, I have all this knowledge, I want to help the scene here with whoever will do it. You know, if it's Vancouver, I'll go to Vancouver, I'll talk to them. If it's Montreal, you know, whatever.
Yeah, because there's a lot of place in Canada to grow, to jiu-jitsu to grow, especially talking about tournaments and even, you know, I've been traveling around Canada too with George and then Next Gen, and we're doing the Abu Dhabi too. We did in Vancouver, we did here in Toronto. I went to Winnipeg, Manitoba, went to Calgary, and other places that, man, it's very different from Toronto, from Ontario. Yep. We have a huge community here. And then when I went to Manitoba to do a tournament, I went by myself and did a whole tournament there with, I can't remember, maybe 70 people. It was great for them. It was amazing, you know, because they have just a few tournaments, and somewhere from Ontario coming here, producing a tournament and making another event happening. It was like great, but there's a lot of things to grow, and I'm sure you can help with that. And people should be looking for that because, like you said, you are part of the bigger picture, and you can help these things here. I'm sure that it will be a great help, and I'm definitely looking for that, you know, because I think Canada has a lot more to grow, a lot more to grow. Absolutely. Vancouver is great too. Vancouver is great. We went there. We had Next Gen Abu Dhabi tournament there, and it's different. It's different, but I think they have a lot of potential in Vancouver. Because they have what's the city beside like US? They have
Seattle.
Seattle, yes, and a lot of people from Seattle goes to Vancouver. Vancouver goes to Seattle, and I can see that happening. You know, it's just a matter of somebody goes there, like you said, somebody really take maybe the knowledge you have and start to put it on the work, because I think it would be nice.
It's like, the thing is, this is like jiu-jitsu. Be honest with you, and this might piss people off, but it's like this: is like jiu-jitsu came here, everyone wanted to learn, then everyone wanted to compete, then some people wanted to organize competitions. Now it's 2020, you know, sucks that there's COVID, but in this year, in this type of environment, now there's some money to be made. So anytime you have money to be made, there's always personal interest, and there's always going to be conflict.
Yes.
So sometimes, unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast in any industry. It's not specific to jiu-jitsu. It's in any industry, whether it's bowling, whether it's badminton, it doesn't matter. Any sport, anything with money and interest, there's going to be an issue. So it's going to take the right people with the right ambition and knowledge to kind of put these people together and say, okay, no one's going to mess with your income. No one's going to mess with your income. No one's going to mess with your income. But hear me out. If we work together and we had this plan, maybe we can all grow up, as opposed to just like, you know, exactly, you know. So,
and I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. But we gotta maybe talk more into that and get people together to see if something can happen. But let's wait COVID finish, and then in the future, 2021, hopefully we can be back with the competition scenario here, and things maybe get better, right?
Yeah, I think you know, like in the US, they're running tournaments. IBJJF is running tournaments again. You know, I think in a matter of a year, less than a year, I think we should be. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have tournaments with no spectators first. Okay. Right? I think that's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. And then once that happens, maybe if there's no cases, or maybe the vaccine or whatever, the flu season's over, then we're going to start to increase the numbers. And then, you know, I think that's how long that's going to take is the question. 6 months, could be a year. I don't know.
We're going to do baby steps for that, right? I believe in it's not only the jiu-jitsu or whatever, everything is going to be on baby step until get back to normal. But Riccardo, so going back a little bit with jiu-jitsu, like on your way on jiu-jitsu, what would you say, like right now, as a coach to people that are like starting it? Like, I know you have like a great experience, and you've been teaching, training for a long time, being around the world. So what would be a great advice for new people that are, you know, trying to go into BJJ?
I think the best advice is that you have to accept the journey and not the destination. And the journey is going to be more fulfilling for you than the destination. So the destination is get my black belt. If you just focus on that and you're become one of these students that you're obsessed with belts, you're going to be the guy in the room that maybe some people don't really like. And you're not going to appreciate the time you have and the knowledge that you're going to get. So that's why I mean, like, the journey, you know what I mean? Like, embrace the journey, love the journey, as opposed to just the accomplishment. And I mean, that's just a general thing for people starting, because I think the problem is when people start, like, I'll give you an example. Like, yesterday, this girl announced that she's a pro boxer and she wants to do MMA.
I saw that.
And she made a comment like, I want to get my black belt in 1 year or something, right? 2 years.
Yeah.
There you go. So it's like, it's not about the belt. It's not. It really isn't. You know, the belt it's a goal, and once you get there, you realize that there's more goals. But if that's all you focus on, there's so much more that you can give and receive in this journey. And I think that's a number one mistake people make, is like, how do I get my blue belt as fast as I can? You know, I want to get my stripe as fast as I can. And don't worry about that, because if you're the guy that's asking all the time, you're probably going to be the guy that's going to take forever to get it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Focus on the technique, focus on learning, focus on building your game, focus on, you know, bettering yourself and not comparing yourself to others. And then the good things will come. You know, the belts will come, the stripes will come, everything will come. That's kind of my advice for beginners, because I think that the number one misconception is like, you know, they do a beginner class, they're like, okay, can I get a stripe? And then they think like the stripe is like expected, you know, but like, should be up to the discretion of the instructor or the coach. And, you know, you got to just appreciate it, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. Definitely. I really like this device. One thing, you speak Portuguese, right? It doesn't need to be the best Portuguese, but you do, right? You do understand. We had a conversation through message and we type Portuguese or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, and you like the philosophy too. What do you think? Like, I know back home in Brazil, since I got in Canada in 2012, by the way. So back home, I always had my friends that, you know, became black belts, used to train jiu-jitsu. And they all have that type of respect. Back in the days, it's still a lot of respect. And till now, all the friends that are, you know, they are black belts and that I know, they are very like, oh, you can do this, you can do that, because they have this type of respect with the coach and with the mats. What do you think about like people calling like the black belt as professor? Because this is a Brazilian thing, I believe. This is a Brazilian thing. We call them professor, right? What about here?
So I think like every academy is going to have different rules about that. So I'll give you an example. I know when I was in Brazil, I didn't hear that much professor. I heard mestre. I heard a lot of people call mestre. Yeah. Like I when I was in Manaus, I would train with mestre Pina. I would hear mestre. Yeah. Professor,
yes.
Sometimes, but more like mestre than professor. What happened was professor became an expression that I think it was Gracie Barra started as an Americanized appointed role of, you know, a coach, you know, or instructor. Yes. So they were one of the first ones that kind of appointed that name, I think like in 2007, and introduced it to the North American culture of jiu-jitsu. Now, personally, if I'm not your professor and you're not training with me, you don't need to call me professor.
No, exactly.
I see you on the street, even if you're my student, you don't need to call me professor. Under the people that we train with, Professor Hafangi, we use the word professor. So if I'm in the academy and you're my student, if you want to call me professor, great. If you say Riccardo, I'm not gonna like give you push-ups. I really don't care. I don't want to be called master because I'm nobody's master. And but that's my opinion. Like my opinion is like there's no right or wrong with like listen, I think like every team is gonna be different. It's like, but like don't go there and complain 2 years down the road that you don't like it. So like when you opt into a team or an academy or a culture, you have to be willing to accept all of those things. So it's like some of the guys are like, man, I've been training at this academy or team for 3 years. It's bullshit. They have a uniform policy. Okay, who cares? Like, but you bought into that. Yeah. So if you don't like it, go. Yeah. So it's like if you don't like it, go. Like you know what? Like to each their own. And maybe you don't understand why the professor does that, or the instructor, or the gym owner does that. Maybe he has his own reasons. So I think like everyone just needs to like like everyone does their own thing. They do things their own way, you know.
Yeah.
George has his way of doing it. Professor PJ, the Mendes, everyone has different ways of doing it, and it's not going to be for everybody. Some people are not going to like the saying professor. Some people are. I just think like people shouldn't care so much about that. You know what I mean? I think it's.
Oh yeah, I agree. People shouldn't care about it. I agree with that. Yeah, because I asked that because I was talking to a friend and we kind of debate that, and I agree. And it's not all about you, because sometimes you have your students. I have my own student that come to me, hey professor, and I'm like, hey, you know, I mean, not the person that's gonna say, hey, no, don't call me professor, call me professor, because if you believe that you're gonna say the guy, hey professor, and some people gonna, I got one student that called me sensei. I'm like, man.
But you know what? Saulo accepts when people call him sensei.
Expect.
So, he accepts it.
Oh, okay.
People say sensei.
Sensei.
So is anyone going to dispute Saulo?
Yeah, no.
Go try. Go try. You see what happens.
Exactly.
So my point is like, this is the problem. The thing with jiu-jitsu is it was not like judo. Judo has like more of like this is the rule and that's it.
Yes.
Jiu-jitsu, because it became spread out, everyone made their own rules. So everyone has their own way of doing it. So there's no real right or wrong.
Yeah.
This is how these guys do it, and this is how these guys do it.
Exactly.
That's all. You know, and you have to, and once you understand that, and once you're okay with that, everything else is like whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I never got any stripes, blue, purple, but I did on my brown.
Okay.
So does that not make me a black belt?
That's,
you know what I mean?
It doesn't make. I didn't get my purple.
Yeah, exactly. Because that wasn't a huge deal when I was training. Do you understand? So like, it is now. It's different now, right? People are like it's a big deal right now. Yes. Yeah, but like, it wasn't at the time. So at that time, in this culture that I was in, we didn't have that. Yeah. Does it depreciate the value of what I was doing or what I was getting, or as me as a professor or as a student? No, it's just different. It's all, and when you really think about it, it's, you know what I mean. What
everybody path, like everyone's jiu-jitsu path is different, right? Any life. Exactly. So the thoughts, like I said, I just want to ask that because I want to see the how do you say, like your opinion about it too, because it doesn't really matter. Like you said, if I say something, all the people gonna maybe see this the video and say, oh man, I don't agree with this guy, like he's full of, you know. But people, no matter what you say, people maybe gonna come here and say, hey professor, and you're like, oh okay, hey, how are you? You're not gonna mistreat the person because of that. Oh hey sensei, yeah, hey man, what's up? You know, like what's going on? Yeah.
I've never told somebody to not call me professor or something. I almost told somebody, it was a guy that like left our gym, and I would see him in like the academy, like to work out, and he would say, hey Professor Riccardo, and I was like, dude, you left our gym, don't call me professor. Like, you know, and we're in a gym, just call me Riccardo. Like, you don't have, like, that's the only like that's the only guy that I would ever say something to. But I never even said it to him because I was just like, whatever, you know what I mean? I really don't care, you know?
I see, especially in the gym. Hey, professor.
Yeah.
I
was like, so I'll accept it actually in the gym, because then maybe it makes the people around me think that I'm like intelligent, you know? Maybe he's a university professor. Oh, he's
a position, right? Yeah. Oh, professor is a guy who teaches in university, blah, blah, blah. I was like, man, in Brazil, they actually do that, call the guy professor, but it doesn't really mean that. It's just like, I believe it's a type of respect. My opinion.
There's a lot of things about the culture. I think about this all the time, and there's a lot of things about the culture of jiu-jitsu that it's like one of these things that, like, especially with social media and cancel culture, that you can't really talk about publicly, because some people think it's so barbaric and they think it's like not the way. But at the end of the day, if you talk to the real pillars of the sport, the real people that contribute, they don't see it as anything bad. You know, I've been in situations where I'm not going to say names, but I've been told to do something. You don't dispute it. Obviously, it's not to my harm, but if you get told to spar, you don't turn around. Like that's just how I was raised, you know, like it's just like, I don't know if it's a European thing because my parents are Italian and, or if it's specific to jiu-jitsu, but like certain things you just don't talk back, and you just, you know, you have respect. So sometimes like I see it go too far where it becomes like cultish. Of course that's bad, but I think that in jiu-jitsu we need respect, and we need that, you know. And I think if it's just like a free for all, like
a martial art,
it's a martial art after all.
You see a lot of parents, like at Cambridge BJJ here, my gym, we see a lot of people coming, like parents. Oh no, you know what? I want to put my my kid to do jiu-jitsu because of the respect, because of the way you're gonna, you know, like teach them to do stuff. And oh, my kid sometimes doesn't listen. I want him to be here and create that type of exactly right.
Exactly.
And
that, you know, it's funny. I always remember one thing. Like, so in 2001, I went to Atlanta to train with Romero Jacare, and that's when like Leo, Comprido Terere, and Shvia came, and that was the first time like I was like, oh wow, like I heard about Terere, and I knew he was like from the favela, and I kind of saw what a favela was. And I still remember this to this day. Is like he came and I saw him. I was like, oh man, it's Terere. And the first thing he did was like bow and like, you know, like before getting on the mats.
Yes.
And that's not a big deal. Maybe it's really normal, but for me at that time, that stood out because I was like, here is this guy who's supposed to be in the poor, lower social class, but has the most respect out of everyone in the entire building right now. So I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like that really stood out for me. I was like, so I like that stuff. I think it's cool. And we need it as a martial art.
Philosophy, I believe. This is part of the philosophy, and
absolutely,
a lot of people are missing that. Nowadays, a lot of people are missing that. I try my best to keep it with it and learn more all the time. Learn, because it's always something new you're gonna learn, especially from guys that have been training for a long time. And man, today I really like this talk. I enjoyed a lot. You know, like I learned a lot from you right now. I didn't know how long you've been in the community, and this was a great approach between me to like with you. And man, I'm impressed. I really like the conversation. I hope we can meet sometime again, or maybe do another one in the future, you know, maybe see each other in some tournaments, because I know things will be back, and we always keep pushing to the better in the community, in Ontario, Canada. I want to push it. I really like to promote it. You know, I like to promote jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu. Since I got here and I started doing it, it's something that I really fell in love. I was being a soccer guy. I used to be, you know, but I did a surgery that stopped me from that. And then I started surfing, and then I moved to Canada, met jiu-jitsu. Since then, man, my mind just changed.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
I'll be here trying to do my best with jiu-jitsu, promoting jiu-jitsu to everyone. That's my goal with the podcast, you know.
That's great.
And make that happen.
Yeah, it's great. I think you're doing a good job. And, you know, like anytime you want to talk again, we just have to find a schedule. I apologize for this week. But, and, you know, I'm happy to, my thing is like, I'm always happy to talk to people who are trying to push media and use it as a term to promote jiu-jitsu here. So it's a pleasure for me. Next time we'll talk more about you and your journey, so I can learn more about you. And let's do it again for sure.
Definitely. Riccardo, thank you very much. Have a great day. Okay. And now I'm going to make some stuff for my wife. It's her birthday today. I got
okay.
So let's meet up some another time. All right.
All right.
Thank you very much, man. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care.